Get your hair cut way up high. Get yourself a lawyer, son. You're gonna need a real good one.
Yes, well, you all know what that means. It is time to be joined by David Whiting. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Ali.
I feel all discombobulated, the fact that you're not here with me.
Well,
you are working
I'm almost
from home.
getting used to it.
Oh,
I
are
am
you?
at home today.
Does that mean
I'm
that
about to go to the office because the internet at home is too slow today.
Oh, have you got the NBN?
Yes, well, we're in one of the areas that were the last areas that was fibre to the home, so it should be incredibly fast.
Yes, funny that, isn't it?
Just today it isn't.
Did you know, unbelievably, although I do live very close to the city, I don't have the NBN. And I'm going to call it now. I don't want the NBN. They keep telling me it's coming. And I'm like, it's okay. Just take your time. Like, don't worry about it. David Whiting, quite a bit has been happening in the legal world or not. What are we going to end up with on the other side of this in terms of trials delayed, cases delayed? Does it amount to justice delayed?
Oh, clearly it does. But what do you do in a crisis? You cope with a crisis. There'll be, you read reports of people who come along and say, well, I want to apply for bail. And the issue is that they will have already served on remand the likely sentence they would have received in any event. So there's a lot of those. I had a call last week from a gentleman who consented to a family violence intervention order, and he agreed to orders that meant that his partner kept the children, and now we're in the situation where he's in the throes of a family court dispute, and the fact is that he's not in a position to go back in any meaningful sense and deal with the children issues. So, he won't be able to get that reheard for probably 6 or more months, I would have thought.
Yeah, at the least it would seem from what some of them are saying. So are there moves now to try and are you seeing through the Magistrates Court more people given bail? Are we seeing a move towards people at the end of their sentences or close to the end of their sentences being released?
Well, that's the suggestion. There's been civil rights people who are coming along and saying, well, look, prisons in a sense are like cruise ships. There's lots and lots of opportunities for cross-contamination. So one would have expected that if you got COVID-19 into one of the prisons, it would go through it like wildfire. So we've got elderly prisoners who in theory are not a great risk, but they've still got time to serve. Is it reasonable to keep them there? Don't know. No easy answer. I'm looking at it from a civil perspective and how do we conduct trials, particularly with social distancing. I'm aware of one matter that was listed in Melbourne a few weeks ago, and the judge thought that the judge could run it from court with. But remember, you've got a QC, a junior barrister, and a solicitor, and presumably they're all at 3 different places. And the witness is at home, so there's about 7 or 8 link-ins to a online meeting, which sounds messy beyond belief.
Maybe it'll focus their minds, so some of the legal argument might be slightly less ponderous, dare I say?
Oh, no, I think that's overstating it, Ali. But the bit that I'm finding amazing is how we've all adapted very well to working from home.
Can I just, last time you were on this program, David, of course, was the same day that we got the unanimous High Court decision to acquit George Pell. And just talking about trials, do you think, or do you see, now that you've had time to think about it, because of course you were giving us some commentary literally as that decision was being delivered, do you think that decision discredits the Victorian legal system, that we have 2 out of 3 appeal judges and 1 jury who couldn't see the flaws that the High Court thought so obvious?
Well, we all have 20/20 hindsight. I don't think it's... I actually... these are the unwinnable comments. I think it's the problem is with the passion of the allegations, that we all find allegations of child sexual abuse abhorrent, and our instinctive desire is to believe the complainant. And in circumstances where you go back many, many years, memories become less reliable. So I was trying to read quite a bit of the commentary over the weekend, and the question becomes, do you want to get rid of the presumption of innocence in particular kinds of cases? Right? Do we move to the presumption of guilt in the event of a sexual accusation against a child? And at that stage, the whole fabric of the system goes to fall apart.
But you
because otherwise,
you talk about the passion of the allegation, and passion is not something that we equate with our legal system. In cases like this, is it an argument for a judge-only trial, which we don't have in Victoria, but they do have in other states?
I think it's an argument for a judge-only trial, yes. It doesn't mean that the judge won't get it wrong in the same way as the jury gets it wrong. But hopefully it will improve the outcomes. They might be quicker. I would have thought that a judge-only trial would logically be faster than a judge and jury trial.
And you would assume that a judge-only trial would remove any risk of passion? I mean, judges are well-practiced legal experts who are meant to be dispassionate.
I think they would be far less passionate in considering the issues before the court, and they would. There would be less influence from what I would call their own background.
David Whiting is with us, 1300 222 774 if you've got a question. And unbelievably, which goes to say something about the times that we are in, there are still space for some calls. So if you've got a legal question, don't waste the opportunity. Roger's called from Red Hill. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning, Ali. David, a query about a prepaid tour now suspended by a Victorian company. They're refusing a refund, stating force majeure allows them to refuse refund and that they're going beyond their legal obligations and offering us a credit. Now, because of our age, we've got no guarantees that we can use this credit. It's not transferable. And I just remembered you from, I think, last week or the week before, you said something about if a company cannot provide a service or a product, then you are entitled to a refund and not a credit. Could you just sort that out for me, please?
There you are, David. Can you sort that out?
Okay. Well, we'll do our best. My view is that you are entitled to a refund. If you like, the force majeure is an act of God that prevents them from fulfilling their obligations under the contract. But that doesn't mean that they've got the right to keep your money.
Right.
So they have yes, I did promise to take you on that particular tour on that particular day. There's now been an event which makes it impossible for me to do that. I accept that. So the answer is put me back in the position, don't sue me for breach of contract, put me back in the position I was before we entered into the contract. So I would say as to the credit argument, no, because they haven't fulfilled their side of the bargain. They're being prevented from doing it. Get your money back.
Well, they've sent a rather lengthy letter to all their customers stating that they will not pay refunds. They will only give credit notes. They say a refund is not available. So what do I do there?
Have you questioned it, Roger? I wonder if that's a blanket letter and they're trying it on.
That's what I'm wondering, Ali. No, I thought I'd ring David first. The fount of all knowledge. I mean, if you've got access to him, why not use him?
Flattery will get you everywhere, I reckon. David, what do you reckon? That it's possible it's a trial?
I would keep going, I want my refund. I'm really very sorry. You're not in a position to deliver it. But having said that, Roger, there are an extraordinarily large number of businesses who wouldn't have quarantined your money before the trip. So they will have already spent, I would have thought, a fair portion of that. So the issue from the point of view of the tour company is that they might have $400,000 worth of advance monies against tours, but some of that would have gone on deposits, some of it would have gone on administration expenses. Their problem is that they won't have the $400,000 to pay everybody back.
But I suppose my question would be, David, surely if they've taken a non-refundable deposit, then that would cover that. I mean, is that something you can't go after the non-refundable deposit? Because that would have paid some of these setup costs, or can you go for the whole lot?
But the concept of a non-refundable deposit is that we have a firm deal that I will attend that tour on that day. And it's to prevent the customer, it's to provide regularity and continuity for the business operator. So you say to the person on the other side, that's the deal. There was a cooling off period. That's now gone. We're now locked into this deal. But the supplier in this particular instance is saying, I am no longer in a position where I can deliver what I promised to deliver. I want you to forgive me for that. And I don't think it's realistic. I think it's realistic to say, I'd really like to give you a credit, but I don't think they have the right to insist on a credit when they're the people who aren't performing.
Good luck, Roger. Let us know how you go. Kate in North Balwyn. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning, David and Ellie. Thanks for having me on. I own a rental property in Elwood. It's a flat with a designated car space. It's one of 8 flats on the block, and one of the other flats is owned by the Department of Housing. I'm having a car space issue with another tenant who lives in the Department of Housing flat. This tenant is managed by Launch Housing. The tenant in this flat continues to park his unregistered car with no number plates in my designated car space, despite having his own designated car space, which is vacant. I've asked him respectfully in person and in writing to move his car, and he will not move it. So my reason for calling is to ask what action I can take to remove this unregistered car from my car space.
I'm going to take that one on notice, Kate. I want to look at it from the point of view, what is your right to exercise self-help? Now, yes, you can go to VCAT, but right,
Yep.
you know, we're 6 months down the track before you'll get a hearing there because of the delays to everything.
Yes,
So I'm going to take that on notice. If you listen next week, I'll tell you what your rights of self-help are in that situation. Is that what you want?
Yeah, that would be great. That's really fantastic.
Thank
Okay,
you,
done.
Kate. That's homework for David. Joe in Mitcham. Hi, Joe.
Hello to you both. I have just sold the property, and I had a question since times are so unpredictable. I guess I assume that I will move the money into the lawyer's fund who has conveyanced the property, but I had a question. What if that lawyer goes bankrupt or out of business? What happens to the trust fund into which the money goes?
Well, there's a fidelity fund. Are we talking about selling you're talking about settlement, are you?
Yeah, I'm the vendor, so at settlement, money goes
Okay.
to the lawyer.
The practice that we follow is that we provide for the money to go directly to the client at settlement.
Yes, but
So you can tell your conveyancer, your lawyer, that because the settlements are now all conducted electronically.
yep.
So nobody passes around bank checks anymore like the good old days. It's now done through a system called PEXA, and it's possible for the money to be directed anywhere. So at settlement, you simply say to your lawyer that you want the proceeds of sale deposited directly into your account.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. David in Belgrave. Hi, David.
Yeah, good morning all. My question relates to a legal tender. A large chainsaw store at the moment is demanding payment by credit card only. Can they refuse cash? And if they do, what's my options?
Gee, a lot of stores are in that position at the moment. David?
Plus refuses cash. And I can't imagine the Australian government refusing any money at this stage, but you can't pay a tax bill cash. So here's this two parts to this. The first part is that the coin of the realm, the notes and the coins, have to be accepted by the person to who you owe a debt. So it is a good and sufficient discharge to all of your contractual obligations to pay cash. Now, there are some limits in relation to coins. As a general proposition, you can't pay coins to more than 10 times their value. But if we now take it to a bulk store, a big hardware store or a supermarket, the law in that situation talks about the concept of a invitation to treat, not a sale. So when you pick up your goods on the aisle and you take them to the counter, you are at that point offering to buy them. Right? You have no right to them at that stage. So if I was to say to you, it's a condition of you coming into my store that you will make all of your payments for goods at this store on a credit or a debit card and not cash, I can refuse to sell them to you. But if I've already sold them to you, I can't refuse you cash. Does that make sense?
It does, but they have to have
Sort
signs
of.
at the door, not at the checkout.
Oh, well, then you just leave things at the checkout.
Okay.
And Dave, I suppose you can always do a bank transfer if you don't use a credit card.
You can, but they're kind of difficult to do at the checkout.
But at the same
because
time,
the operator's not going to see it.
No, that I take that point, but I also think that it's, for many retailers who want to reduce their risk and don't want to handle cash, you have to allow them to take what measures they think makes them safe.
Oh, I think that's right, but I find the irony is the reports last week that the Reserve Bank has had to print a whole lot more money because people were putting it presumably under their mattress. Now it's now out of circulation and everybody now wants credit cards.
Yeah, indeed. In fact, my local shopping centre has got two shops, one of which will only take cash and the one next door which will only take card. So, go figure. Anyway, George in Bacchus Marsh. Good morning, George.
Good morning. My query is that when can you refuse a direction from a police officer if you think it's going to imperil your life? My circumstances were I was driving a loaded semi-trailer and I blew a tyre and of course rubber dispersed on the road, which was a freeway. I could only pull up safely 3 or 4 kilometres further on, changed the tyre, put another wheel on, and as I was about to drive off, a policeman on a motorcycle pulled up and said I had to go back and remove the debris from the road. And I said, well, if you can stop the traffic, I'll do it. But I said, I can't. I said, it's too dangerous. I said, that traffic's travelling at 100 kilometres an hour. And there was quite a lot of it. And I had to drive back around the freeway, back to another exit and come right back around, probably do another 5 or 6 kilometres to get back to where it happened. But he was insistent and said he would put the truck off the road and all this sort of thing if I didn't do it.
So what did you do, George?
Well, I insisted that he stop the traffic, and he didn't have much success in stopping the traffic because he was only on a motorbike. So we got some bits off, but it was highly dangerous,
David, what do you think?
I imagine, David, there are some... George, I imagine there are some rules in relation to loads that disappear off a truck. You probably have an obligation to do it. It's some more homework. Can you refuse a direction from the police if you think it puts your life at risk? The answer would be yes, you can, but if the issue was pushed, you might need to prove that there was a real risk of your life being at risk, not just a mere apprehension. But I imagine there are rules in relation to loads falling off trucks and who has an obligation to clean them up. I shall look at the road rules and the other legislation and an extra piece of homework.
Very good.
I'll have to work this week. Yeah.
It's all right. You've got 7 days. And you're not doing anything else, really, are you, David?
No, nothing.
Pat in Box Hill. Hi, Pat.
G'day, how are you?
Good. What did you
Hello,
want to
Pat.
say?
How can we help?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a question so much, but something I think has got to be considered with the rental and the landlords. And we've been encouraged as landlords to negotiate an outcome with our tenants. The issue is, by example, if I were renting a place for $600 a week and the tenant said to me, well, I've lost my job, I'm living on savings, I can't pay for $600, I can give you $300, and I agree to that. Then if the tenant defaults, I can't go to my landlord insurance and claim $600 because I've renegotiated the rent down to $300.
Yes.
So in helping out our tenants, as we want to, as we'd like to a great extent our hands are tied because we're going to be the ones left holding the can. So in consideration that's been given to any rental package, I haven't heard this aspect being brought up.
Pat, David, is Pat right that you couldn't go for the gap, for example, or that if you renegotiated that would wipe out your ability to recoup the full amount?
Yes, because you'd negotiated the lease rental. So the Pat is right. If you had a property at $600 a week and it was now you negotiated with the tenant to reduce it to $300, then at that particular point, and the tenant then didn't pay the $300, your claim would be for the $300.
For the $300.
So what you would do, Pat, to minimise the risk is that you might choose to enter into that agreement 1 month at a time.
Pat, are you still there?
Yeah, that's very true.
It's not perfect, and we haven't seen what the state government's doing in terms of residential tenancies, but that's where you would be looking.
Month by month to make it a bit safer. Bob in Strathmore. Hi, Bob.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to repeat myself here. The gentleman before about the trip. Now, I purchased two tickets through Qantas to San Francisco. Now, my business partners were going to present at the University of Southern California. Unfortunately, the trip was cancelled by the American Association of Research, and then at the same time, Qantas cancelled the trip as well. Now, what Qantas have done, they've refunded the one ticket for the assistant for one of them. Now, the other ticket, they've decided to provide a credit. Now, the way things are at the moment, we actually want that money. I want that money to go back to the business credit card. They won't do it. I've been to the Pell Marine Airport. I've asked the staff there to assist. They said they can't do anything about it. Am I entitled to this refund for the other ticket? Why won't
they give you a refund?
What?
Well, you paid for it, did you, Bob?
Yes, I did. But
you paid for it on a credit card. I can see no reason why you can't. But look, I'll have a look at the Qantas terms of service.
And actually, I should say, right, David, that I've had a couple of text messages as well along those lines that airlines are not giving back the full amount. They will allow you to reschedule, or they'll take a whack of what you've paid and keep it. So it'll be interesting to see what your research shows on that one. I just want to quickly try and get to Anne in Mooroolbark before we have to go to the news headlines. Anne, tell us your story.
Hi, David and Ellie. Thanks for taking my call. So we have a situation with a family wedding. My daughter's getting married in early August, and unfortunately the venue that she's dealing with is not being very nice, unlike all their other suppliers who have been very empathetic. She's really wishing to postpone her wedding. She has 170 guests, and some of whom are coming from overseas. But this venue is not even allowing their June couples to postpone at this stage, and unfortunately that means that my daughter isn't able to gain a date next year, and all those Saturday dates are running out for next year. And basically, in effect, they're saying that if the restrictions were lifted a couple of weeks before the wedding, that bad luck, you'd still need to go ahead with your wedding, despite the fact that she hasn't been able to even, source her dress or try it on because it was coming from overseas. Her husband-to-be is having his suit made, which hasn't been able to happen. So,
and let's put that to David. David, what recourse do they have if businesses Well, I suppose there's no certainty they're not going to be able to supply the service at this point.
Yeah, well, the public safety and wellbeing legislation introduced the concept of a state of emergency, and that was extended on Sunday for a further period of 4 weeks. So the venue is saying we might still be in a position to provide that service. It's not like a plane flight that didn't go last week. I've got a booking for next August, and they will want you to keep it so that their business can continue.
So Anne's daughter doesn't have much choice but to sit tight for the time being?
Well, she has there's no argument, there's no winnable argument at the moment that the wedding can't proceed in August.
Mm. And I'm sorry...
There might be no expectation,
but
there's no guarantee.
There's no guarantee, and until they're proven to not be able to deliver the service, that's where you are. David Whiting, thank you. I'm sorry that you've got a bit of homework, but it'll keep you entertained while you're in isolation.
It will.
David Whiting there from Whiting Lawyers in Melbourne.